there and it's a different story. Or the general overseer or the senior pastor has gone to buy something, a property, or put his name on properties, and especially church building, land, and it's creating problems. So these are issues that are real with us. And I believe and I pray that by the grace of God, we have, I don't know whether all the ERS we've had such an array of experts. Normally we have two, three, but this one is, I believe, is exceptional. We have lawyers, we have engineers, we have architects, we have surveyors, and many others. And most of them also are people with ministerial and other skills. So we are blessed today. I believe that we will leave here very complete. Just as the ERS on the company's code has become a reference point for many organizations, many church organizations come to us, say, where's your document? You did some workshop here at Red Church and we want to have the document. It's a reference point. I believe this is going to be another reference point. People who are desiring to have peace in their churches when they are building, they would come and say, resource persons or Kingdom Equip, the documents that were presented at that workshop, at that conference, would you give it to us so that we can use it to guide our church board and our leadership? I wouldn't want to go to introduce our speakers, but I'm proud and I'm honored to have, I believe, some of the best in the industry. I cannot go back to my seat without acknowledging our partners, the Ghana Institution of Engineering. When we approached them, none of the institutions gave us any hard time. They just gave us more person. They have some of the best engineers supporting us on this project. The Ghana Institute of Surveyors, in fact, they have actually hijacked their program from moderator to two speakers and to everybody here. I think a third of the people here are surveyors. I want to thank you so much for making yourselves available. Then the Ghana Institute of Architects, they are here also. They've also given us some of their best in the industry. Last but not the least, as part of the program today, we will recognize, as we did last year, some Christian efforts. Now, the recognition is not a competitive recognition. We are ministers, we are also on the field. We hear and we see things. And our board also examines these things. And when we think that individuals or organizations are doing exceptional things that fit into our focus for a particular ERS, we bring them on and let others know the good things they're doing. One beautiful thing that's going to happen today is that in between the slots, we are not going to be having music as such, but almost all our partners have 1 minute, 2 minute videos, and you're going to see what God is doing. The church is not as weak as some of us might think. There are beautiful things going on in many places. And I believe that by the time we close today, you have a sound memory and a sound knowledge of what God is using his own children. There are more Bezalels in our generation. Let's pray for them to do their work, and let's support them to do their work. Once again, on behalf of Kingdom Equip Network, we welcome you all to this 6th Ekklesia Roundtable series. Thank you very much.
Please, let's do it again. Reverend Emmanuel Ansah, God bless you for your good works. Yeah, so I'm continuing with where my boss left off. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I'd like to introduce our chairman for the day. Right after that, he'll give his remarks, and then we'll move on to have various speakers coming up. Our chairman for today is the partner and technical director responsible for the legal and advisory services for Shemen Impact Limited, an impact facilitator firm that seeks to identify impact funding opportunities that add value to impact investors, financiers, intermediaries, impact projects, beneficiaries, citizens, and communities. He is a seasoned legal practitioner with 33 years exceptional leadership. He spent 27 years in corporate life working with EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank Group. He also has experience in managing across 33 African countries. And he also managed offices in Paris, London, Shanghai, China, and also other offices across the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, with a big round of applause, let's welcome on stage lawyer Morgan Essiedu, who is our chairman for today, to also give us his remarks. Please, we can do it better than that. Great.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. It gives me great pleasure and honor to be associated with this morning's function, and let me express my sincere thanks to Reverend Dr. Ansan and the leadership of Kingdom Equip Network for this honor done me. In my professional career over the years, I have had the pleasure of being associated with the development and construction of some very iconic projects, including the EcoBank Group head office in Lome, the building complex there, the EcoBank Ghana towers, as well as the SU towers, to mention a few. And as an individual, nothing gives me a greater pleasure than being in a facility that is fit for purpose, designed and constructed. I mean, when you are in such a facility, you see that your eyes just go around and you are nodding and you are nodding and you are nodding. And yet, if you don't get it right, then everything becomes fraught with all sorts of issues. And at the end of the day, you have to break one place and then reconstruct and all that, making it very expensive. So what we are doing today is unique and it's exceptional because we are also doing it in the house of God. I believe that God has given his people wisdom and he expects us to use it in advancement of his kingdom. As I thought through this particular passage in Proverbs 24 came to mind. It says, by wisdom, a house is built. By understanding, it is established. And by knowledge, the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. So we need the wisdom of God. We need the understanding of God. And we need knowledge. And I think what Kingdom Equip is doing this morning is assembling, so many experts, starting with our lawyers, our surveyors, our architects, and facility management experts. We have gathered them all this morning to share knowledge, to share their experience. And I believe that at the end of the day, we will live here better than, we came in. And my prayer is that the landscape within Christendom, the building landscape is going to change, and that some of the problems, the challenges that we have had, losing so many properties because improper documentation, there was improper documentation at the beginning of the acquisition, etc., etc. We'll be able to put it all to rest. And of course, we will build fit for purpose edifices that when you go in, you can also sit and relax. So ladies and gentlemen, as I said, it gives me great pleasure to be here this morning and to be asked to chair this session. Let me add my word and welcome all of us to this morning session and say, let's relax and let's listen and soak in from our experts. And I can assure you that we will not be disappointed at the end of the day. Thank you and welcome once again.
Thank you so much, Lawyer Morgan Essiedu. who also happens to be the chairperson of the Council of the Scripture Union. So like my boss said, everybody here in one way or the other is into ministry. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now take a short video from the owners of our venue to enlighten us on what exists in this beautiful edifice we are hosting this event today. After which I'll be back to introduce our speakers. Please, let's give them a big round of applause. This is a beautiful facility, and we are proud to be here today. Ladies and gentlemen, our first session, we're going to have three speakers on various topics. Our first speaker is going to talk on the legal realities of land acquisition and property development. He is the managing director. He is the managing partner at Legal Alliance with over 20 years of legal experience. He studied at the University of Ghana and also at the Ghana Institute of Journalism. He also went to Ghana Law School and is the Management Development Productivity Institute. He's a member of the Ghana Bar Association, Commonwealth Lawyers Association, International Bar Association, and Advocate Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker for the first topic is none other than lawyer Yao Ejay Efiye Nketia. Please, with a big round of applause, let's welcome him to the stage. And he will take us through for 30 minutes. Please, let's do it for him as he comes up. Thank you, Lord.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank the leadership of Kingdom Equip for this opportunity. We couldn't have had this session at any better time than today. In fact, if in the Ghanaian Times issue of Friday, July 7th, 2023, appeared this story. You know, I think the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council had a session with the Land Commission on the topic that we are taking a look at today. And the Greater Accra Regional Lands Officer, these are some of the issues that he raised, the issues, the rationale behind that interaction. And he said that they were engaging the churches and the religious leaders to equip them with the necessary knowledge and insights into the Land Act to enable them sensitize their congregations on their responsibilities. Then he also added that the churches and the Christian community need to be abreast with the issues relating to land acquisition in the country. Well, in all of us, we've been to. Thank you very much. All of us, when we started our basic economics in secondary school, I think we learned about factors of production. And I think we were given 3 factors of production: capital, labor, entrepreneurship, and land. And out of the 4 factors of production, we realized that land is the only one which is fixed in nature. And land forms part of property. What is property anyway? I would take my definition from the Husband's Laws of England, volume 87, the 5th edition, published by LexisNexis. And it says that land, a property is used to denote, please, if you could, the property is used to denote either ownership rights or the things which are the subjects of the ownership rights. And property could be, is normally divided into real and personal. We are interested in the real property. Real property denotes land and things that are attached to land, which, more or less have become parts of the land, or the land rights which endure for life or are inheritable. So real property as against personal property. And land is part of real property. You can inherit it. It is fixed. And there are a whole lot of rights that go with it. There are different nuances. If you're talking about land, there are three key issues that we may want to understand: possession, title, and ownership, which are very, very, very important when it comes to land acquisition. If you talk about possession, it means what the actual physical occupation of the land or the property. And it may also mean not only the actual possession itself, but then activities that will send a signal to everybody that the land, someone is in control, someone is in charge of that land, except any other person who is able to show or prove a better legal right to possession. So when a person wrongfully takes possession of a land belonging to another, that's why we say that the person is a squatter or the person is in adverse possession, which is very, very important. Why is this so? Because if you have your land lying there and somebody, a squatter, goes onto that land, and according to the section 10 of the limitation decree of 1972, the NRCD 54, you do not do anything about that for 12 years, then that person, the squatter, even though he's an adverse possessor, he is protected by law within the 12 years statutory period. So the possession, that's why normally you advise that once you get a land, put some sand there, fix your corner pillars, probably allow somebody to live on that land. All these are incidences of possession, so that at least anybody who comes to encroach on it, when you go to court, you may want to recite some of these issues as you having been in possession of the land. The other issue or the other nuance that we may want to look at is title. Title is different from possession. Title is the means by which a person establishes his right to the land. So title, enables somebody to, claim, or somebody who is the owner of the land to claim ownership. It may take the form of possession, as we have indicated, or it may be the form of a document, of a series of documents. It may be, the recitation of the oral tradition, at times when you take any indenture, is it that they may, especially in Accra and most parts where they don't have original documents covering those lands, unlike in UK, then you may have to tell the story. So you do your recitals. My great grandfather was a hunter. He went hunting. He shot at an animal. He was going to locate it. He found a river. There, blah 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 blah. All these are oral tradition indicating that the person has title. So you see that's why normally when you go to court, the first relief you are seeking in every land litigation, which is, now we have 11 land courts. All the 11 land courts, they can't handle the land cases. The Chief Justice created, the General Jurisdiction Courts. They are handling land cases. Now the specialized courts, the labor courts, the financial courts, the family court, they are all handling land cases. So now about 70% of the cases, if I'm not wrong, pertains to land title issues. So you are asking for declaration of title. Then the third thing we may want to look at is the ownership itself. Ownership of land covers both possession of land and title. Ownership, the possession, you are in physical possession, and then you have title. So owner of a land is a person who can demonstrate that he and those through whom he claims the land, we call them, grantors, have, possessed the land for a long time, and there cannot be any reasonable probability that the land belongs to any other person. And then the owner of the land may, rely on his documents of title or his mere possession, as we have looked at, or his, to prove his ownership. Let us quickly go through the land acquisition procedure for granting title to land in Ghana. Before applying for a land title, definitely you would have seen the land, you would have done your inspection, you would have tried to find out the interest that you are seeking. What interest in land are you seeking? Are you seeking for lease, freehold now, because it's been abolished more or less by the Constitution? So the interest that you are seeking, is it a lease? Is it a sub-lease? Is it an assignment? Is it a transfer? Is it a license? If you're talking about license, when you allow somebody to live on your land or put a kiosk on your land for some period, that's what we refer to as as a license. And Section 39, in fact, the new Land Act, Act 20 of 2020, Act 3036, I hope 1036. I hope everybody would, try and get a copy. If you go to Ghana Publishing, you get it. In that, the Section 39 deals with the subject matter of conveyancing. I won't go through that. What constitutes conveyance? Conveyancing is the generic term that is used for all the drafting, every document that you prepare, covering land, whether it's a lease, whether it's a transfer, whether it's an assignment, that is what is, called a conveyance. And before you get to that point, you may want to have, a contract of sale. And we know by, basic law of contract could be oral or in written form. So we have an informal approach, and I think that's what most of us do. And that is what caused most of these, problems. You see the land, you go and meet the, the leaders or the head of, the family and then all those things. And then you agree, they ask their surveyor to, go and show you the land. And in the past, the surveyors are here, so I'm not going to go there. In the past, somebody would even sit in his house and then, just because he had been doing the demarcation, he would just, say that, okay, we're giving plot number 1, 2, 3. So he does the site plan. And in the long run, you find out that the site plan of covering that land is in the sea. It's happened, it's happened several times. So that's the informal approach. Then the formal approach is where a prospective, purchaser enters into a written contract, what we call the contract of sale or sale and purchase, agreement, which is very, very, very important. It has a lot of advantages because it's a contract. So all the conditions under which you are entering into, that relationship have been, spelled out there. It also enables the prospective purchaser to do his due diligence. In the past, if you were doing due diligence, it was expensive, costly, because you will be dealing with all the 3 or 4 land agencies. If you want to conduct searches, you have to do it at Land Title Registry. You may want to do it at the then Land Commission, which is now the Public Invested Land Management Division. Then you may want to do it at the survey and mapping. But now, under what they call the CSAU, I think now when you conduct a search, it covers all the three areas. Then one important thing, we'll come back to it, is GRA. There's a new trend. Now I'm going to show you some samples of something. Now the GRA, for tax purposes, recently has been requesting for sale and purchase agreement, among other documents, under the Revenue Administration Act 2016, Act 915, and also Part 4 of the Income Tax Act 2015. You'll be there. So if you sell the land, they will write to you that if I just this week, I was asking the GRA, they have an office near the EcoBank Towers in the Shippers Council building there. Because they are written to a client, the Minister of State. And I was asking them, and now I think the Land Commission people will confirm it. They said that every quarter, Land Commission is supposed to furnish GRA with a list of applications for stamp duty and all those things. And so you are there, then they'll write to you that you have disposed of this land, so come and pay capital gain tax. That's what is going on right now. And then one of the document they ask for is your sale and purchase agreement. So when you go to Land Commission or whatever, what are you doing? You do what we call the deduction or investigation of title. Section 64 of the Act 2020 explains what a good title is. The law indicates a good title. So if you are buying a land, you do your deductions or your investigation, even though it's time consuming, it is expensive, but it's very, very important, because it is through the investigation of title or the deduction of title that you find out whether there are any liabilities on the land. Imagine buying a land at Airport Residential area for $2 million. Then the agent will tell you, the purchaser, that, we hear lawyer. Meanwhile, that land belongs to, it's a government leasehold area, Roman Range, cantonments, and all those. So the person may have just 5 years left. And then he decides to dispose of that land to you for $2 million. Then he goes to buy another property somewhere. The Land Commission decides that they are not going to, grant a consent. The consent to the land that you are buying. So you've right from the onset purchase litigation. And it's happening to churches. It happened to, corporate, the corporate organizations, and, so many individuals. So every seller of land or property should be able to prove that indeed he has a title to that land. And in fact, I will take the opportunity to read, section 12. If I did an article on this, people were praising this new Land Act, and I did an article on it, whether the new Land Act, is it not an old wine in a new bottle? And in fact, it is, because they've consolidated all the old laws. In fact, the old Land Act, the Land Registry Act 122, this section 12 was there, protection of land and interest, which is a criminal liability. Under the old law, under this same law, in fact, it is the section 12 that made people started praising, everybody, that now they said that if anybody who unlawfully exercises or purposes to exercise supervision or control of land development in the location and has no interest or extorts money, blah, 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 you commit an offense, liable to 5 years, not less than 5 years, or not less than 15 years imprisonment. It was in the old law. And then we are more abreast with the vigilantism and related offenses after the election here in this area. But if you look at the Act 999, the Act 999, the whole section 7 of that law, the whole section 7, deals with prohibition of activities of land guards. So it goes to reinforce the section 12 of the provision of section 12 of the Act 220. So nobody, if you're a landowner, or you are a purchaser of land, you cannot employ somebody to go and guard the land. It is a criminal offense under the two laws. So after you've gone through your processes, you get what we call the abstracts, abstract of title. The questions that your lawyer will be making, we call them the requisitions. And then in that one, he asks you to prove your title. Are there any encumbrances on the land? Whether the land has a mortgage on it, whether it's a land that is co-owned. And we'll come to that, whether it's co-owned between a spouse, spouses, siblings, because you inherited it under the vesting assets or the letter of administration of your father's estate, and then the surveyors will tell the adequate description of the land, with the plan that have been drawn and attached to it. And as I say, if it's from an estate, the vesting assent with the the related issues. And then if it's a government land, the letter of consent. If it's a government land, you are requested to produce the letter of consent. And if it's a co-owned land, husband, wife, that one too, you are expected to produce how do you call it, your consent. In fact, I may want to, especially with respect to wives, spouses, the section 47. Section 47 talks about restriction on transfer of land by spouse. It's very, very important for us. So I may just quickly read it. Except as provided in subsection 3 and 4 of section 38. In the absence of a written agreement to the contrary by the spouses in a marriage, a spouse shall not, in respect of land, right or interest in land acquired for valuable consideration during marriage, sell, exchange, transfer, mortgage, or lease the land rights, without the consent of the other. Now that's the law now. So I cannot sell our joint property. So it's very, very important. Once you do that, then all the section 43 to 45 talks about, a voidable, it becomes a voidable conveyance. So the court can easily cancel the, whatever contract, whatever relationship that you entered into. I want us to quickly go through what we call the workflow of the land title registration, because that speaks for itself. So you see that the indenture has been prepared, and section 33 is not because I'm a lawyer, but I'm just picking the section 33 of the law now as it is now. That is only lawyers who qualify to prepare conveyance. If I just this week, we're rushing, to prepare some document. I didn't stamp it and sign. So we took, there are about 4 documents. After we had done the oath of proof and those, we took it to the Land Valuation Division of Land Commission. And then they called us that we should come for the document. It's been queried. Because we don't have the lawyer's stamp and signature on it. Because in the past, people were, so many people were preparing documents, they would just pick an old document. They don't even understand it, whether it's a lease, whether it's an assignment, and all those, and then they'll prepare it, and then give it to you, and you are happy, leading to a lot of litigation. So these are the issues involved in the indenture. The indenture could cover anything, lease, transfers, and all those things. And then there are what we call the implied covenants, and then on the part of the transferor, the person you are buying the land from, he has some responsibilities towards you. And you, the purchaser, you have some responsibilities. So even if they don't appear in the instruments, you are bound by them. It goes through. And then there's a question of the conveyance, very, very important. The person you are buying the land from, you see that, it would have indicated that, needs also and so, with the consent and concurrence of the principal elders of the family who have the right to do this and that and that, then he signs, and then in the presence of those who witness for him. And then you see that from there, there's at the back of that document, we have the oath of proof. And then the person who witnessed for them is, he is going to sign the deponent. And it's an oath. So that is why after that document has been signed, it has to go to court. So if you lie on oath, and now we have a similar problem on our heads right now, with a member of parliament, allegedly, then you are lying on the oath. So it's perjury. So that's the process. After the court has done the oath of proof, then it goes to the land valuation division. You do your stamp duty, because that is covered by section 32(1)(2)(3) of the Stamp Act. That you cannot, no document, no instrument will be accepted, until it has been stamped, and then you pay the adequate stamp duty on it. And then the section 22 of the Land Commission Act also empowers the Land Valuation Division to do that. So after they've done the stamping and all those things, then you do your lodgement. In the past, they'll give you a small paper with what is called a lodgement number on it. So that's what they call the yellow card. But now with the new system, the CAIU, because they are doing it online, but one of the white papers, there you see that they've written yellow card on one of those papers. So from the yellow card, then there's a letter attached to the yellow card to the Director of Survey and Mapping to prepare a cadastral plan or a parcel plan covering the land. And then that is where, at the time they are doing that, then they are doing the publication as well. The publication is to give notice to the whole world that they intend issuing assurancy with the land title certificate. So if you have any objection, then within 14 days, you have to raise the objection. If you don't, then that is the end of it. And that one too is covered by section 96 of the new lands act. You see that there, at most of it, we don't even pay attention to this publication that appear in the Daily Graphic, Spectator every Saturday. And then, times. In fact, that's why just this morning before we started the session, I was going through the Times, and then I saw, so I felt that I needed to draw our attention, because there are about 3-4 different notices that, so when you go page 18 of the Ghanaian Times, you see that the first notice is notice to issue a substitute certificate. It means that the person has misplaced his land title certificate. If you replace it, they just don't get up and give you a new certificate. They have to publish it. So that's what the first notice is talking about. So 14 days. Then the second notice is, the general notice that they intend, you apply for the land title registration. So they intend issuing the certificate. So if you have any objection, you do it. The third notice is an application for what we call, conversion of a provisional certificate into a full certificate. Because at times there may be some issues with the land, where land title is not sure. So they may give you a provisional certificate for which covers 10 years. But then along the line, if the problem, probably there may be litigation in court or whatever. If that matter is resolved, then they would have to cancel the provisional certificate and then issue you with a new certificate. So that these are the processes. And as you go along, if there's a problem, multiple requests, I think the surveyor may, is going to talk more about it. Because that land, so this is an example, a typical example. You see that now the director of survey is writing to the director land title that he has requested them to prepare a cadastral plan or a parcel plan, but then there's a conflict. There's a conflict between the applicant and another person. In fact, this one, there was a problem there, in fact, because the grantor that they say is conflicting with the grantee. The grantor was the actual grantor. But the problem is that because there was a certificate on that land already, the document that was prepared, instead of them preparing a deed of transfer, they got a first registration application form. First registration with a lease is different from a transfer. So far as survey mapping is concerned, they have already plotted the land in Charles Dokwaku's name. So they cannot process that. But then, as we went along, there was a correction. So this is the letter that the land title director wrote to the director of survey that he should go ahead and then, prepare the certificate, because the problem has been resolved. And then as you go along, if there are any other problems, then somebody may raise an objection, what they call a caveat. The caveat under the law, section 134 and 136 of the Act. And then the caveat, it means after the publication, the person has an issue with the land. So he writes to raise an objection. That objection is what is called the caveat. And then the law says that within 7 days, the land title director should notify the applicant about that. Then they may refer it to, for resolution under the Alternative Dispute Resolution Acts now, if you look at the law. That is section 98. Then if you are not able to resolve it, then they would, ask you to go to court. If you're able to resolve it as we did with the multiple request, then they will go ahead. And then another thing that we may want to, seriously look at is the land commission, the public vested that we were talking about concurrence. Because the law says that every stool land, if you are buying stool land or any government land, you need the consent of the land commission. In fact, there's section 23 of the Act talks about it. Then it's a constitutional requirement, Article 258 of the 1992 Constitution, which established the land commission. So it said that there shall not be any disposition or development of any stool land unless the Regional Lands Commission has certified that the disposition, etc., is considered, considered with the development plan in the area, etc. So it's a constitutional mandate. So if you are acquiring any government land or any stool land, that is what, that's what happened. Can we go on with the slide? I just want to show something there. So there are a lot of yes, so these are provisions that we may want to look at when we go home. But section 77, the section 77, 79 do not form part of the land title registration thing we are doing. It falls under a new thing that is coming up. That is the Land Use and Special Planning Act 2016, Act 925. Now that law says that you cannot just get up and then, start building anyhow. You have to go through a lot of processes. The major thing I may want to draw our attention to is section 94 of the Special Planning Act. In fact, today, there's a notice there. Change of use or zoning by district assemblies must be accurate and drawn to scale. And then if you are using the land for any other purpose than what originally had been planned for, you just don't get up. You have to. And today, in today's papers, in the same page, Lada de Kotopon Municipal Assembly, public notice, application for change of use of site from commercial to residential. So if you want to, this person, originally the land was acquired for commercial purpose, and now you want to use it for residential purpose. So you have to, apply. And that's where the churches, we are very, very guilty. Because as you drive around, you see that a lot of land that, for residential purposes, we've used them for other purposes. If at least a notice, I didn't know that today there was going to be a similar notice. So you see that if you look at this one from KMA, if you go down there, the 3, you see that they are requesting for change of use of plot number 2, 4th Street at Asamanso from residential to civic and cultural use, that's worship. So they want to change this, this to be used as what? As a church. So that's what they mean by the, the commercial, civic use. So these are issues that we may want to, take a look at. And then another trend that is also coming on that this thing is, if you are buying any stool land or it's a government land, now Land Commission will write to the Metropolitan Assembly, with your site plan attached. And then they are asking that the Land Commission has made planning a client, blah, blah, blah. So on account of this, we request you to indicate the land use zoning of the subject site. So you cannot just get up and then build anyhow, because it is now a statutory requirement. So they wouldn't just, Land Commission, until you do that, they will stop processing your application for land title registration. Land Commission, the public and vested division of the Land Commission will not give you the consent that you require. Then the last thing I may want to touch on briefly is what I have titled the new trends in tax administration. The new trend in tax administration. Now, for whatever reason, GRA had become very, very overactive. In fact, just last week, a friend of mine, who is the Minister of State, he had given his land free of charge to somebody. And then we were processing the application. And then I'm there, then he calls me that the land, GRA has written to him. I'll show you the typical information they are asking you for. That he had disposed of his land. So he should come and pay capital gain tax on it. And then they give him, I think 30 days or no, 14 days. And then if the 14 days had not even elapsed, then they said that, no, it had elapsed. Then they wrote to him using the stamp duty that Land Commission used, the value. So I think the value was 160, they used 160,000. So they use the value, the stamp duty now is 1%. So they used that and then did assessment and then gave him a bill of 40,000 Ghana cedis to go and pay. So I was arguing with GRA. No, but this thing is, it was a gift that they gave to that person. Then he said, okay, then, show it, how much you have spent on the land if you did a wall and all those things, bring us all those receipts. It's expenditure that you made on the land. So they would then deduct it and then give you the remaining to pay. You know how we do some of these jobs here. We call the contractor or whoever who did it, because this was so many years ago. So just yesterday, he issued a check and we have to go and pay 40,000 because we were arguing that it was a gift. Then they said if it's a gift, then the person he gifted the land to should come and pay 25%. You know that the gift tax is 25%. So these are things that we would want to look at. And then as a church, if you are renting somebody's property, it's a residential property, the law says that you should pay property rent of 8%. So it means that you have to withhold that 8% and pay to GRA. And if it's for commercial property, you pay 15%. So let's look at the attachment. So you see that the letter that GRA wrote to the client, information from Land Commission, and they were telling me, GRA was telling me that every quarter, Land Commission has to compile all applications to, made them to them for stamp duty and those things to GRA for tax purposes. But the way Ghana, we keep our data and all those things. So now it's very challenging for GRA. But then they look at the low-hanging fruits, like my friend, the minister, because everybody, they know him, so they took advantage and they wrote to him. So you see that, on I think the location and description of the property, your Ghana card. Now when you are doing every application registration, they ask for your Ghana card. And then you see that you have your tax identification number, TIN number on it. And then the information should be supported with documented evidence, such as receipts, sale to purchase agreement. So you see that we are going back there. If you did not do a contract of sale, in which you have spelled out the condition, the terms and conditions, now they are asking for all those information here when you apply for your land title registration. And if you don't do that, you don't pay your capital gain and you don't show it, Land Commission, does not continue the processing. So I think, in a nutshell, what we are trying to do, if you are lucky and you go through all those processes, then finally they issue you with your land title certificate, that you can go home rejoicing because you have defeated Land Commission. Thank you very much.
Please, let's do it once again. Lawyer, thank you so much. I believe we all want to defeat Land Commission. It is not an easy battle. All the things you have to go through. But I think once you have the procedure or the processes, and you have an able administrator or a legal person among the team to aid you through it, it will become a process for your organization. And hence, anytime you acquire land, it's easier for them to go through that process. The first time you battle, and that's why you need the expertise of lawyers and all those who are involved to guide you. And once you're done, you'll be able to then establish that as a process in your institution for land registration. I know you have a lot of questions, but we'll hold them. We'll have a Q&A session. We'll take a video, after which I would introduce the next speaker, and then we'll go on from there.
Mommy, I have 2 boys in my home. See, my leg is broken. The hospital bill, they are finished. My house money, all they are disconnected. So what You come and say it down, mommy.
Me bambo life insurance and team and was some a player team adiachi a year adiachi and swamp body uko fiska wa he me catch the book banku with little money like 1 city when you have some vie or catch him say insurance dear a big man you just start 269 no about hash why we
Always is a chicken. It's a chicken. With 1 Ghana cedi, 5 Ghana cedis, 15 Ghana cedis, or 30 Ghana cedis per month, you can get up to 30,000 Ghana cedis for funeral and disability cost. Dial *269# to sign up via Vodafone Cash today. Mebambo, insurance made for you.
Thank you. And that's from Holland. So our next speaker is going to talk about the engineering considerations you need to make for the church development. I'll take you back to the video that you watched. You remember the video about the premises you are in. They had several rooms for various activities and functions. And I'm sure a lot went into how to design and even plan that. So the next speaker is going to tell us more about how or what engineering considerations we need to take as church leaders and church leadership or church management to be able to put up buildings that meet the purpose for which they are being put up. Our next speaker is a fellow of the Ghana Institution of Engineering and the current chairperson of the Civil Technical Division. He is a graduate from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and has, they will beat me one day, and has a BSc degree in geological engineering and started his professional career as a geotechnical engineering division at the Architectural and Engineering Services Corporation. He is also, he has also worked briefly in Brong-Ahafo region as the regional officer of the GPRS Social Investment Fund, and he has also served as an individual consultant to the World Bank, Ghana Urban Transport Project, among many other things. Ladies and gentlemen, with a big round of applause, let's welcome to the podium Engineer Michael Obeng Kunedu to take us through the next session. Please, you can do better than that. Big round of applause for him. So engineer, you also have 30 minutes to take us through this presentation.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all. Before I start, I must admit that I'm a bit anxious, you see. I come from a practice where we don't do too much talking. We do not preach, we do not litigate in court, so we don't have those skills. But I will try my best. And also, correction, engineers normally do not design these beautiful things that you see. Ours is to make them happen after they've been designed. So if you are able to defeat your lands commission, you have the architects put your ideas into reality, then we will come and make it happen for you so that it's safe. Can we have the slide, please? Okay, so I'd like to start with the regulatory environment. Engineering in this country is regulated by law. A lot of people don't seem to know that. Now we made it our mission to let everybody know. The Engineering Council Law, Act 819-2012, is what regulates the practice of engineering. We also have the legislative instrument. But basically, the object of the council is to secure the highest professional standards in the practice of engineering. The functions, actually, to regulate the practice and appropriate engineering bodies to certify individuals and corporate bodies for registration. I'll explain that later on. So the council registers practitioners, that's individuals like me. It registers engineering firms. It also registers educational institutions that train engineers. And the programs that those engineering institutions run also have to be regulated, and the council has a say in what is taught. And it's also supposed to determine the limits to the areas of engineering practice and operation. I can't say that I'm an engineer and just go around do anything I want. There are limits to that. Next, please. In this country, engineering practitioners are classified into 4 occupational groups. The common one that most people know are the engineers, like me. But also we have engineering technologists. We have engineering technicians. And also very recently, we have artisans who are also licensed to practice certain forms of engineering. So those are the 4 groups. So practitioners from all these 4 groups typically would come together at different levels before we're able to make an engineering project happen. And all these groups have to be licensed. That is what the law says. And the council gives us the licenses. Long time ago, we had the Ghana Institute of Engineers. That was the only body, but now we have others. So it's important to explain a few of these things. So the Ghana Institute of Engineering is licensed under the Engineering Council Act. What are our core objectives? To promote and advance the science and practice of engineering to the benefit of society in Ghana and in Africa. We are supposed to ensure that engineering practice in Ghana conforms to the established technical, environmental, and safety standards. Standards, adhere to regulations and guidelines and code of ethics of engineering practice. This is just to give you a snapshot of what the GHIE membership is as of now. We have fellows, we have senior professional engineers, the numbers are there, the professionals. The engineering technologists, engineering technicians, and craftsmen, they are a newer number, so we see that the numbers are a bit lower, but we are building up. We have some in trainees also, professional engineers, the technologists. So, what is the objective of engineering service, especially for construction? And these are the areas that should be of interest to you. We engineers, we tend to ensure that the projects are durable, all components of the projects for the full service life. We are also supposed to ensure that the projects are serviceable. If we say serviceability, we mean that the purpose for which it was constructed, you should have the best use of it. Somebody commented about how this building is fit for purpose. That's what we are talking about. At the end of the project, what you want to do with the project, you should get full realization for the full design life of the project. Safety during construction and during use of the project. And then, of course, the economy. That's value for money, especially during the construction phase. Those are some of the things that the engineers will look out for when they come onto your project site. And if any of these things fail, then the engineer has failed. As simple as that. How do we achieve these objectives? There are lots of things that we do. We do feasibility studies and site surveys. These start before the project. There are design calculations, modeling, testing. This SIA I put here is a structural integrity assessment. I'll talk about it a bit later on. There are drawings, there are specifications, there's structural detailing. There is the element of construction supervision. Then we also have construction quality control programs to make sure that they work. And then at the end of it all, the constructed elements and installed services must work. That is how we make the objectives come through. How do we go about these things? We have technical guidance in many forms. We have building codes. In Ghana, we have the Ghana Building Code. We have the Ghana Building Regulations. The MMDAs also issue development permits, commonly referred to as the building permits. We have engineering standards and specifications that we work to. There are codes of practice to guide specific aspects, whether it's design, construction, fabrication, all those things. And some of the standards we have Ghana standards. People are really not aware of it, but they are there. We have the British standards, the European norms, a couple of American standards, depending on where the design comes from, who the contractor is. Some of these things come to play. Now, when it comes to the actual provision of engineering services, and this is where the law, the Engineering Council Act, really kicks in. It is very clear about these things. And now we want all potential developers to be aware of this. Engineering services, whether they are design, supervision, the actual construction, they are supposed to be carried out by engineering practitioners licensed by the Ghana Engineering Council through a professional body. What the law says is that you cannot present yourself directly to the Engineering Council for registration. You have to be certified by what we call a professional body, like the Ghana Institution of Engineering. We will do the basic certification, present you to the council. If they are satisfied, you'll be issued a license. Until you have that license, you are not supposed to hold yourself out as an engineer and provide any of these services. Of course, the engineering practitioners are supposed to be of good standing when you are engaging them and for the period of time they are providing you services. Now, for the licensed practitioners who are members of the body, they have registration numbers and relevant documents relating to their work. So if an engineer gives you a design or a report or something and it's not properly stamped and signed, you should ask him to do it. Just like the lawyer said, if he doesn't stamp it, the thing comes back. It will happen the same. If engineer gives you relevant documents, you try to process it, it's not stamped, it's not signed, it will not be accepted. And another thing we advise is that licensed practitioners should restrict their services to areas of their registered specializations. In short, avoid know-it-all engineers. There are certain engineers who think they know everything. I am an engineer, but I know that I don't know anything, and I know none of us knows everything. If you are picking a civil engineer, let him stick to civil engineering and not start straying to electrical engineering. It causes problems. And when the problems come, then they will dodge. But you will pay the bill anyway. So please avoid it. No, please go back. Nope. Nope. Back. Back. You are going forward. Back. Here. Okay. And then we also want you to know that relevant details of all GHIE members may be confirmed by at the GHIE Secretariat. So if you are not sure, please, a call, walk in, whatever it is, the information is there. They will let you know the status of that particular engineer and whether he is at that point in time of good standing enough to provide the service that you want him to provide. Okay. Okay, typical engineering consideration for building project. We have many different engineering specializations. So depending on what your project is or your interest is, there are different types. We have geomatic engineers. They deal with surveying, generally demarcating, measuring, alignment, and things. What geomatic engineers do is that they enable a spatial appreciation of the site conditions based on georeference data. Many years ago, they were using poles and chains and things. Now with GIS, with the remote sensing, and they become very sophisticated. And the information they give you is actually georeference. It tends to be very accurate. And wherever in the world, they won't give you a site plan that will end up in the ocean. It won't happen. It will never happen if it's geomatic. Then we have the geotechnical, geophysical guys. They tend to do ground investigations, commonly referred to as soil tests. That label is an anachronism, but it's still used, but they are geotechnical ground investigations. They also look at construction materials, quality testing, etc. What these guys do is that they enable engineering geological appreciation of the ground conditions at the site, including seismic response parameters. These days, it has become very important that we look at seismic responses, what you call earthquakes, and how they will affect your property, depending on where you are. There are ways of, estimating what will happen if an earth tremor should pass. And because churches typically or church activities typically involve large numbers of people, we are particularly concerned with that. Because when you have a huge congregation and certain incidences occur, the results could be catastrophic. So we advise that when things like this are being built, seismic design is very critical for church kind of projects. And then we also have the hydrological engineering people. They tend to do flood assessments and things. So when you are developing projects over large areas, in certain areas, it is good to have an idea of possible problems you may encounter if it rains beyond a certain point, or this doesn't even need to rain much. Because somebody has built his filling station in some waterway, you could end up having lots and lots of problems. And it could happen even after you have built your thing. So it's good to do these kind of things. Now, the thing about these, particularly these three sets of engineering activities, is they tend to precede the design and implementation. So most of these things can happen years before you actually build. You see, so people don't know that these are important and they should be done. At times they go, and when they are going for a permit and then they tell them, where is this? Then it becomes an issue. But we're advising that for your projects, you should know that these things are important and it should be done in time so that you have a better appreciation of what you're going to do. Then we come to the ones which most people see: structural engineering, the design and construction issues. This is the actual realization of the structure. So you see it going up, and then the column sizes, the cantilevers. You can see this place has been well designed. The whole of this stretch, you don't see a column standing here. Somebody has done his job well. That's the kind of thing that structural engineers do. And then drainage and waste management. As urbanization becomes more and more complicated, it's wiser for people now to pay more attention to this so that you can actually operate in a livable environment. The MEP stands for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing works. These days, they have also become very specialized as we build more and more of these complex structures. So they do the installation, operation, maintenance of the utility, HVAC, the security, and other critical services to make sure your projects function well, and then they are safe. All of these people come together to give you a good project. And activities related to these are normally visible. That's the one that people see most of the time. Next, please. I mentioned that I'll come to the structural integrity. It is becoming more and more important these days. This year, I think we have taken note of 6 building collapses in this country. 6, some of which have resulted in deaths, one of which was a church. You see, it's becoming more and more critical that we look at these things, because, and that's why we're saying that it's professionals who should be engaged on these things to do the things well, and then we prevent all these things. How would I say? The structural integrity assessments are analysis that are done to find out how safe buildings are. Now, there are 4 categories by our GHHI guidelines. Category 4, that is let me say the simplest. Category 4 assessments are done when the designs are done. That is before the building is put up. A structural integrity assessment has to be conducted. So like this thing, when it was designed, it will be done for the designers and the constructors to be sure that when they put up the building, it will not collapse at any stage as they are building or after. The category 3 ones are when you want to change an existing building to use it for something else. You must do that assessment to see that though it is standing now, if I change it for a particular, like people who use schools for churches, for a building that was meant for a different purpose, you want to change it and use it for a church, you have to do the structural integrity assessment to be convinced that it can now withstand the vibrations and all that when people are really in the mood. And then the category 2 is just when we want to find out if a building is safe as it is now, even for the same purpose. The category 1 is the one that we don't like at all. That happens after the building has failed. It has collapsed. And sometimes people have died. Then we have to come onto the rubble and try and find out how come that building failed. So as it is now, the 6 that have collapsed so far, we have started investigations into 4 of them. The other 2, they came later. But the first 4, and you see, it's interesting. The first 4, one of them took place on a university campus. Plenty professors, and they have a development office and everything. A building collapsed there. One was a church. It was not as big as the Assemblies of God, but it was still a church, and it's collapsed. The third one was a private developer. In fact, the last 2 were private developers. They are commercial buildings. The 3, the university one, I don't have the information, but as of the other 3, definitely I know that they did not use professional people to do the work. They did not do a lot of the laid down things that were supposed to happen, and the buildings collapsed, and people died. It's tragic, but what we are advising is that let us go more professional. There's more accountability there, and then hopefully we won't have more of these things. Next, please. Can I have the next slide, please? Good. Now I have a few tips for you after having talked plenty. Best practice tips. Engineering surveys and feasibility. We are saying that please engage licensed professionals to carry out your surveys. It is good practice to invite properly prepared proposals with clear indications of how they will be done and whatever standards they are going to use and the codes from more than one potential provider. Ask for a number of proposals and then compare. And the other thing is that we are asking that you set up panels of qualified and experienced practitioners to review the proposals. What we tend to find out is that somebody in the congregation might be an old engineer or something. He will just put up a proposal, then it will be taken. We're saying that is not the best practice. Ask other people to do this thing and sit down and then try to do a proper process of reviewing these things and minimize the conflicts of interest. My brother is an engineer. Those kind of things are not the best way to go about it, please. And then another thing which we want to plead with you. I know your church is not like that, but we've seen it in a lot of churches. Use value for money. Don't just use the lowest proposal, please. Value for money. Your activities touch a lot of people at any time. So the risks are very, very, very high for church projects. So please. And then when people prepare reports for you, for engineering surveys and proposals, and generally, please convene a panel of qualified peers to review these things. And then take decisions, like I said, based on value for money before you actually award contracts to people. And the last thing is that we're asking that you use proper contracts to engage engineering practitioners. Contracts, written contracts, please. It will attract GRA though, but in the long run, it's better, so that dispute and things will be minimized. Next, please. When it comes to design and supervision issues too, we're asking that engineering services should be supervised by professional engineers. The professional engineer, we have two classes. The SP is just senior professional engineer, and then we have a professional engineer. What we are saying is that don't allow architects, quantity surveyors, the third one is another group. There are certain people who know a lot though, but they are not engineers. They should not supervise engineering projects. Because when a problem comes, it's the engineers who should be accountable, not people who are non-engineers. No matter how good you may think he is. And when we say engineers this time, we mean licensed engineers. And there are ways of checking to see whether they are licensed engineers. Use them on your projects, and then everybody will be safer. And like I said, verify if the engineers of good standing to practice. And another thing we would advise is that clients are advised to check whether all other practitioners are licensed to practice. Commonly, what you will see is that there's an engineer, all right, but then he has technicians and other people under him who most of the time are not licensed. But now with the new law and things, all those people, once they are on these projects, they should all be certified and licensed to practice. So the whole team, it shouldn't just be the supervising engineer who meets the legal requirement, but all the other people, their supervisors, their foremen and things, they are all supposed to be certified to practice. So please make sure that the full team that is on your site meets the minimum requirements. That's for all the 4 engineering groups. Another thing that we are hoping to see in the future, professional liability cover. The engineers should be insured, please. And if you support us in doing that, it will compel the rest of us all to be properly insured so that we are accountable, and when we make mistakes, well, at least we have some cover. We are human. And like we said, use proper contracts to engage your practitioners for work. This is a very interesting area where we don't see much action on projects, but we are pushing that it should come to fruition. Insist that all your construction projects have quality control management plans. You are putting lots and lots of money into these things. All engineering, construction and things, there are ways of managing the quality control. So we are advising that you do that. Another thing that we've seen, materials supplied for works. You should all be subjected to forms of testing. As we sit there now, we are in the process of changing the standards for iron rods for reinforcement. There's a lot of them on the market which don't meet the requirement. Some of the buildings which have collapsed is because the reinforcements were substandard. So we are in the process together with the Ghana Standards Authority to try and get these things properly done. So we're saying that for your big projects, please, let your project managers and engineers and things give you proper testing records and things. And then we also say that you should preferably use third-party quality control people to do your testing and things for you. You see, you shouldn't let it be just at the discretion of the engineer. Do proper testing, and they should be documented. What we've seen with some of the collapses and things is that there's no record of these things, and then it becomes a problem. But they are standardized with any good engineer knows that that is what has to be done. And don't leave the testing to the contractor. A lot of times when we tell people about this, okay, then the contractor will go and bring test certificate, or I have tested the concrete out. That should not be the case. He is to build all right, but get another party to do the testing and submit the results to you, for you to know that the work that is being done properly. And then proper record keeping. For all of these high value investments, let the quality control be properly documented. You may or may not have need to produce those things in the future. It's just a tip for you, please. So, in concluding, these remarks directed to churches. The provision of engineering services in Ghana is regulated by law. We want you to understand that. So please, let's operate within the law. Please engage licensed professional practitioners for engineering services on your projects. And please use proper contracts to engage your engineering practitioners. We are asking that you insist that your project managers should adhere to regulatory and permit conditions. A lot of times, people think that these permits are bothersome and time-wasting and expensive. But there's a very good reason for having them in place. When you dodge some of them, eventually you come back and then you pay a higher price. The permits are structured in such a way that they check certain things. So please, all the regulatory and permit conditions, please ensure that your people adhere to them. And like I said, the quality control program should be properly documented at every level: the floor, the columns, the slabs, the beams. They keep the records, they test, file them. They all have a good purpose. There are times when you even need to take insurance for certain projects because of certain things. They will ask you for this. If you cannot show quality control document, the risk is very high for them. So your premium tends to go higher. And like I said, please apply value for money when you are engaging engineering and other technical services, not only least costs. Thank you.
Right, please, let's give him a big round of applause. So engineers make things happen. They make things happen. And we have those who also design the concept for it to become a reality. We'll take a short video, after which we introduce our next speaker.
It is said that in strength lies all possibility, and in all possibility lies all success. We are surrounded by endless opportunities, but unless progressive action is taken, they remain just that. If we are to grow together, we need to embrace agility, innovation, and future forward thinking. But most importantly, we need to strengthen our core. It's all about the core. Since 1975, we have envisioned, hoped, and reinvented ourselves. And now it's time to go back to where it all began, so that we can welcome in a new era. And with it, we may very well leave a long-lasting legacy.
When I joined Brawl, it was a property management business with a bit of leasing on the side. So our core business was property management for investors and builders. We would collect their rent and renew their leases, fill their space, and that's sort of what we would do. For me, one of the milestone development moments in the Brawl business was when we really came and acknowledged that the two primary sectors that we needed to service, one was the investor properties, and the other one was the formal occupier properties. We were one of the pioneers in that space, and I think that was one of the defining moments in our business to say that we understand the evolution and development of the real estate sector, and not just from one side, from both sides. We've just grown from a property management business that had one service line to a business that has got service lines which are very specialist driven.
Thank you so much. So our next speaker is going to speak on the topic architectural and design considerations in church property development. So what is the concept that the church management or church leadership wants to put up? These concepts are given to the architect, and he's supposed to put them into set of drawings, set of plans, which would have all the various areas that needs to be catered for the use of the church. Now, once these plans are done, it is then transferred to the engineers for them to put up. Our next speaker studied architecture at the Universidad Federal do Rio Grande do Sul, which is in Porto Alegre in Brazil. Since coming back to Ghana, his work has reflected a mix of experience from his diverse background and travels and then his international exposure. He was the lead consultant for several projects, which includes the construction of the Japanese embassy in Ghana, the Golden Tulip Hotel, the Kumasi project for World Bank, for Ministry of Food and Agriculture, and the Law Faculty building in the University of Ghana. His recent badge of honor being consultant design, team lead, and project development manager for the record-breaking COVID-19 Ghana Infectious Disease Center, which was put up in the East Hospital in Accra, Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, please, with a big round of applause, we welcome onto the podium Mr. Kofi Isel Apia to take us through our next topic, architectural and design considerations in church property development. So for the next 30 minutes, please give him your full attention. Thank you.
A very good morning to all of you. It's an honor and a privilege to address this august body. My expectation is that by the time we are done, this will give you an idea of what we do as architects and help in understanding the role when you want to start building your church. So, this is my topic, architectural and design consideration in church property development. The architect, in fact, mimics God. That's what we do. And I'll show you that we are supposed to create from apparently nothing. So we stare at that parcel of land and we listen to the client and we construct things in our mind. And we're able to put together an idea and turn it into a building. Can we go to the next slide? So this is part of the work that's done. This gentleman here recently won the highest award in the whole world as far as architecture is concerned. He's career from Burkina Faso. Can we go to the next? So this is what I mean. So whilst you look at the land, whilst you tell the client, whilst the client tells you this is what I want, and so on and so forth, it gets to a stage where you have to imagine something like this, where you have to do it, where you have to turn it into something which is feasible. And then from there, you can go to our engineers who support us in making it work. I'll go through this and then I'll come in some more detail later on. Can we go to the next slide? Building a worship space is not only a construction project, it's a journey of faith for the architect. It's a responsibility that elevates the meaning of professionalism to a new plane. So the church building itself is such an illustrious assignment that when you go through history and you look at what happened, The first few architects, we traced them all the way from Egypt. The king's main body was the architect, and plus some religious men. So that's all. All decisions were taken from that level. So it's the architect who decides that, okay, we should build a pyramid. Looking at our king and listening to the spiritual leaders, we should build a pyramid. And doesn't matter if 50,000 people die, we build it, and so that, oh king, you may live forever. And so the power of the architect was just tremendous, because he was literally second to none apart from the king. And over the years, that power has diminished and has been resized to meet the needs of the modern world. Now, the highest power is what we call the star architect or star architect. So after Egypt, it went on and on to developments in the various ages, from Greece to Rome, and all that was tied. The civilization was related directly to the style of architecture. And that's why Greek civilization, you had a particular kind of architecture. Roman civilization, another kind of architecture. So it worked there, and until we got to the Michelangelos, who had to work with high people in high offices, with high commissions to deliver a certain category of projects. Can we go to the next slide? So, okay. So the biblical perspective on all this, because I'm speaking to people who come from that background as well, you can take it from Exodus, where Moses was trying to build something for the Lord. And very clearly, a gentleman was selected for that job. He is the first record of who would call an architect. He was given very special skills, and Moses had to work hand in hand with him to deliver this temple of the Lord. It's a very serious assignment. He had to be filled with the Spirit of God, and in wisdom and in understanding and in knowledge of all manner of workmanship. That was what qualified him to build this church. That's why my first statement of saying that building the house of the Lord is a very high and elevated opportunity as a professional to work with. If you look at the history of churches and you continue going on, you get to some which just illustrate this very carefully, and I'll show one or two pictures that will help us. The architect is so key that I'd like to suggest to everybody that never build a church without an architect. I know some have been built with building committees, some makeshift architect, or indeed, even the pastor himself. Let's go to the next. And this is the scripture. I've worked with pastors who literally use this scripture. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And this is wrongly interpreted. You cannot do all things. I put it to you. You see, and that's why we have teachers, we have apostles, God knew what he was doing. Different gifts for different people. And from my experience working with some pastors, there's very high pastors in the land here and out of Ghana, you get that slight, it's an attempt to be an architect at the same time, but we understand the correlation of a lot of times God gives the vision, the initial vision to the head pastor. So sometimes you see, he comes to you and tells you, I have a vision of this place. What I saw myself holding 7 mics, and I was speaking to 1,750 people. And he starts telling you that. And then you look at the congregation, and maybe they are just 150. Then you look at the parcel of land, and you realize it's just one plot. But he's telling you that vision. And so as an architect, what you have to do is to gently guide him to place. And it's not always very easy, because that vision keeps recurring in his mind. So why use an architect. Why use an architect? So in the next following slides, I'll talk about it. There are some very common design errors from inexperienced designers. And note here, I've said designers. The designer, anybody can encode design. Just like you can walk to the pharmacy and self-medicate. But this is such a serious assignment where you take money from the church, where you take money from probably the kelewele seller who has been coming. It's God's money, and you have a strong need to make sure that the money is used very well for this kingdom business. It's very easy to do something which seems like a building of a church, but it's not well articulate. And what I tell people is that you can do the same thing for less and less efficiency. Great experience is required to get great results. So there are ways of organizing a room like this. You can do the same thing. I'm not criticizing anything, but I'm just saying you can have something like this even without columns. So for example, we look here and there are columns. I have to look to the side to see who is there next. But typically, we would avoid that, but sometimes you do it for the sake of. So we'd avoid that and tax our brothers, the engineers, to dream big and make it happen. Yeah, so this is how we work. Our work is to guide you. And sometimes I know they look at it, oh, let me just take students who just came out of university 2 years ago and get him some 2,000 Ghana and tell him, I'm just trying to do something small. And that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. So the thing all of a sudden starts growing beyond what you thought. The young architect himself is overwhelmed by what he's seen because he doesn't have the experience to see the end of the story. And so, like you, he's surprised at every stage and grappling with what to do. This particular assignment must be done by a seasoned professional all the time. And we also, because of our training, there are two professions which have the longest training, the doctors and us. Indeed, we spend about the same time. A proper architect, by the time you are done, you have about 10 years in school and in the office. And even that, we say you are a young architect. So architects who are up to 50, you are a young architect. Because you need experience. You need to go through the mill. You need to understand what you have to do. I always tell my students who I work with that when you come out of school, the first thing, some of the things you are learning to do is you are operating in what I call 2D. So he's showing you a plan. So this is the room over here. This is the washroom over here. Then he graduates to a point where he can actually show you a 3D, and that's when you can say, oh, why have you put this column here? But the highest form of architecture is when you capture the spirit of the matter. And then you determine that when you walk into this room, I want the Spirit of God to minister to you. That can be engineered through architecture. And in the olden times, we had that happen. And I'll show one or two slides very quickly on that. Let's go to the next slide. The other reason why you may need an architect is to provide detailed plans and specifications. Now, this is also related to contract, because you hire a contractor and you don't understand some of these things. And we need to specify what kind of concrete is being used, what kind of finish. You don't understand why we have written X here and Y here. It's all part of the training. So with that, we form the bridge between you and the delivery person who is the contractor. We also keep an eye on the contractor together with the team of consultants so that we can take care of the quality of workmanship. Like my engineering colleague was saying, documenting the quality of workmanship is key. So the fact that you have a permit does not guarantee that your building is going to be built well. Between the permit and having a building that is built well, you have to have the eyes on the ground to detect that right from when they are mixing the concrete that this is wrong. So together with the team, let's correct it at that stage and get it right. And of course, our network, once again, together with the other consultants, is to take care of, to know who is capable. Some people come in nice suits, smelling good, brings a Benz here, but on the ground, he's a weak contractor who just gets his way about things. And then there is a relationship which must be balanced, and that's how we do it. So the church employs the architect and a team of engineers and so on to do the work. So you have the engineers and the architects playing a very hard role to ensure that things are done properly. So this is wrong, correct it, do it again and again until we get it. The contractor is getting upset, and he comes to the head man, who is the senior pastor also, and he complains that, oh, these people are frustrating me. So at that point, the senior pastor, still in his element, can just smile. Oh, okay, you meet them and talk to them and keep it at that level. You don't have to go into this thing. So we can crack the whip and make sure you get a good product at the end of the day. And then this last point I'm going to talk about is for you to get something that is tailored to your need. So you may like this building and you say, I want another one in Asamankesi. And then but you go there, the plot is different, the slope of the land is different, a few things are different, you don't need the size of this hall and all that. So we're able to tailor make it for your needs. And this, in summary, is just a few of the things that the benefit of using an architect. Next slide, please. So the architect must understand that the space is secret. It is not like just building another house in Trazaco. It's a different ballgame altogether. He must really understand that this is the house of the Lord, and it must be treated differently and with the reverence that it deserves. And, to request for a worship experience, I wish I had there's a slide I was going to show, which is a clip, but maybe another time. So this is what I'm saying. That's our duty, is to really make sure there is balance. And sometimes the client or the church may tell you that I want an auditorium which sits 2,500 people, but he does not know that requires a lobby of a particular size, that requires fire exits just in case there's an emergency. He may not know also that when you have 2,500, it means that you need X amount of female washrooms and Y amount of male washrooms. We bring all that knowledge to it. And so what you thought was, oh, somebody told me that can fit in 100 by 100. It's just looking at the hall alone, probably. He hasn't looked at the other portions of it. So you see this was built a good number of years, I think in the 1800s, by an architect called Gaudí. Gaudí was commissioned by the Catholic Church in Rome. His work was so unique, it's still being built and due to be commissioned very soon in the year. But I just want to tell you what goes on in the mind of an architect. I'm just showing you how sometimes, and he used to walk almost like a madman sometimes, but we go into that space of creativity and can be very intense sometimes. And it's very difficult for somebody like this to explain to the head pastor what I'm trying to do. So you just sell the idea to him, And he has to grasp it, and he has to work with the inspiration. And a lot of times, if he's connected to the faith and he allows the Holy Spirit to work through him, he's able to deliver something that meets your aspirations. And that's why we saw the spirit of wisdom and other things being given to Bezalel to work, to be able to deliver. So if you have a chance to visit Barcelona, it's an awesome building to see. La Familia Sagrada. So he worked on it his whole life. He died a pauper, but this has become a world monument. So project teams and processes. I'll talk about that. Yes, so can we go to the next slide? So basically we need a team to work. The building of the house of the Lord is not done by one person. So there's a senior pastor comes, he sets up a building committee. The building committee meets, and then hopefully and prayerfully, they appoint a team. And normally, this team is led by the architect. It's only led by the architect because of the nature of his training. You have to do, I for example, sat in the classroom with engineers for 2 years before I went on to do the other additional subjects. So you need to have a rounded understanding of what it takes to build. So he's the natural leader. He can talk to the electrical engineer in his language. He can speak to the structural engineer in his language. And he can also speak to the rest of the team and speak to money and speak to different things. So that just, yes, okay, so you can leave it here. So that is what happens. So normally the church would address the initial issues with him. Sometimes the engineers come on board slightly later because we are busy trying to get the initial vision from the client. And when we get it, we set up our team. So behind the building of the church, so many things happen. And then from experience also, this must be managed very well because of the dynamics of building committees and so on and so forth. So in this country, for example, I know an example of a church which was built, and by the time the church was, the building was over, one of the members of the building committee had a replica finish of the church in his house. So there are all kinds of issues pushing and pressing the contractors. I want the same washroom, give me these tiles that have been used, and they keep coercing. And if the senior pastor is not strong, there's always a mess in this thing. Can we go to the next slide? So there are some key design factors which arise when you are doing some of these things. The arrangement of the seating, is it going to be fan-shaped? Sometimes fan-shaped, it's probably similar to what we are seeing over here, but it's fan-shaped. The benefit of it is you don't have a very deep cycle. It's good for acoustics, and then everybody sees the pastor at the same time, and then things seem to work within one. But it means that your building is going to be wider than longer. We look at acoustics, we look at lighting, we look at where the altar is. Some like it to be at the side. There are some pastors who tell me, I don't want anybody at my back when I'm preaching. Others say, I don't mind, the choir can be there. Some say, I want to see the choir here. So all those dynamics need to be looked at, and the culture of the church has to reflect in the building of the temple. So this is just to say that the church also serves the community in many ways, the compound, and also you have rooms for specific things, and sometimes seemingly non-religious meetings may go on in certain spaces to make that church complete. So this is building icons. In most countries, there is a religious icon. So you can see St. Paul's Basilica and then that becomes an icon. Or you can, over here in West Africa, you have the building in Cote d'Ivoire, which was built by the late Houphouët-Boigny. It was built to represent. So the church building is always a point of reference in the architectural landscape of a country. And currently we have different landscapes, but we don't have a great symbol in Ghana, and that's what led to all this cathedral talk and all that. We don't, and probably the biggest symbol right now of a religious building actually happens to be the building, the mosque building at Nima. I have been in there, I've looked at it. It's a tremendous splash of skill and funding and marbled throughout the whole place. We don't have anything of that level over here, which states that Ghana is a Christian country. And so I'll show you in some examples how some of these things make strong statements in the countries where they find themselves. This is in North America somewhere, but I'm just showing this to give you an idea of what we can conceive. So you look at this room, for example, it's essentially a white room. And so conversations with the head pastor can help determine what it is. And there are some panels all over in different forms of gray. And I know why the panels are there. They are there to improve acoustics in the room. And when you do this kind of room, there are some issues so you have to attend to them in a particular way to reduce echo and all that. So in this case, we could be having a discussion with the pastor. I said, look, I'm going to use the theme of timber, for example, and this is how I'm going to keep it warm and work with it so you can have a sensation. So when I walk into a church building, I want to give reverence to God. So the building must almost always make man look small and God look big. That's behind our minds. That's what we try to do. And that's what makes it sacred, and that's what brings reverence and character to the building. So just go back. I'll say one last thing just go back. Yeah, so over here, this kind of church is a little different from the normal charismatic churches that we have over here. So they believe in being pious, being very simple. So the church, it comes from the adage of as poor as a church mouse. And so you just sit on benches. Charismatism has a different philosophy altogether, because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the silver and the gold. So we show it in a different way. And so you have to be able to identify what kind of church are you addressing. So we'll go to the next one. So this is in Brasilia. It's a very lovely building. I've seen it myself. And what he does here is he gives glory to God with the structural symbols. This will be an engineer's also nice dream to deal with. And it was done by a famous architect called Oscar Niemeyer. So when you go in, you see indirect light coming from this glaze system. It's such an awesome sight. Now, this here is an extreme opposite of that. This was done by a Japanese architect called Tadao Ando, and he uses light to show his cross. His cross is light, and he says God is light. So he creatively brings that into place. It's also a very lean build, so it's just pure concrete in there, very simple benches, nothing ostentatious, and that's here we come. So that's it. Now this is a proposal we did some time ago for ICGC. This was supposed to have been the rock, and we wanted to create a symbol, a very powerful symbol of the church. I'm just showing it as a reference picture. So, with all what I've said, all I'm saying is that the architect brings to the table so much and very critical information and a skill set, and there's no reason why you should ever try to build, even if it's 100-seater chapel, engage an architect. You have far more to win than to lose. And I know sometimes we look at the money, but really the benefit of it outweighs how much you spend. So you do the wrong thing and it stares at you for the next 20 years. Your bills are higher than they ought to be. Everything is wrong. It doesn't attract. You don't get what you want. Is that what you want? Or you want to do something which will glorify the name of the Lord? That's right. So, like I said, I'm putting it to you. Find and use a good architect. Thank you.
So with this, our first session of topics have come to an end. So just to give you a recap, we started with how to acquire land and what it takes to ensure that you take possession of that land and you go on to register the land, after which you would have defeated the lands commission. Then after that, we brought in the engineers to show us how they make things happen when the designs for the various projects are delivered to them. They went further to also tell us what the various aspects of engineering there are and the categories of engineers that are currently in this country and what they do as well. And finally, you just heard the architect telling us how they design God's temple, what goes into it, and he was able to show us a few samples for us to know which kind of concept fits the purpose that we want. So I know when all the speakers were going on, you were jotting down your questions, and there are things that you would want to know. At this point, we're going to take questions, and all three topics are open. So any question, we then would invite the speaker to take the podium and then answer. But before we do that, we've been sitting all this while, so please, shall we all be on our feet? And then can we do the kick? Right, so just a little bit and then whine a little. Aha. Right. We'll be going on break shortly, so don't worry about it. Please, kindly have your seat back. So we'll take our next video, after which the floor will be open for questions. We'll have a microphone going around. So once you take the question, I would direct it to the appropriate speaker, and then he would give the answer. So please, we take the video now.
Tropical storms, flooding, wildfires, droughts, shrinking fish catch. In a world of ever-increasing uncertainty, nothing is predictable. The smallest stumble or fumble easily ends in a mighty tumble, with your world crashing down around you. Don't crumble. Glyco always has your back. Glyco, we cushion you for life.
Thank you so much. So it's time for questions. We had talks on the registration of land, how to secure church property. We also had a talk on the engineering, what goes into making the plans, bringing the plans into being. And then finally, we had a talk on the designing stage of our church building. So please, at this point, if there are any questions, you kindly raise your hand. I'll get the microphone to you. Right.
My first one go to the architect. I want to know, at what stage is your work done? After drawing the design for us and the team, is your work done there, or you have to see to the end of the project? And also to my brother, the engineers. It looks like in one project, it means I will need about 4 or 5 types of engineers to be on site to work. Is that the case? And also, he talked about a report. I also wish to know at what stages do I require a report from an engineer in the construction of work? Thank you very much.
All right, so I'll take the lead on that, and then I'll stray slightly into the second question before the engineer answers. So what it is that ideally you take the architect from the beginning. I don't know whether I'm in the right place. Yeah, okay. So you take the architect from the beginning, and you want to keep him to ensure that that dream is properly laid out. So you keep him true to the supervision and the delivery, like on a 10K business. One doctor who says take it 3 times a day, the other one says 2 will do, or take the blue pill instead of the red, and so on and so forth. They may all get results, but it's good to trust one and go all the way with him. Now, I'll just quickly delve into the area of the teams, the professional teams. Ideally, you should have it all on block. In the past, what used to happen was that you hire the architect, then you hire the engineers, yourself, and then work starts, and then there's a problem, and the architect says, no, that's an engineering problem. It's from the mechanical engineer. The mechanical engineer says, no, this comes from the structural engineer. So you are often at a difficult place, not knowing, because that's not your area of expertise, and you get confused. So the world started moving into one-stop shops. Yeah, because when the consultants work together, it's also a form of marriage. So you want some good synergy between the engineers and the architects, and to make sure that they are getting it right. So one-stop shop, the engineers and the architects come together, and then they respond to you as one. So nobody's coming to say that this was done engineer or that other engineer. So that's how I would advise the churches to do, to have one group of consultants under one leadership, and then you have the various licenses that are given from them. You have the engineering licenses and design licenses and so on and so forth. And the indemnity can cover everything. And it's a simpler process, and that's what I always encourage. Thank you.
Right, so before the engineer takes the next question, I would please invite all the speakers to be on the stage, so it makes it easier for us to reference the questions.
Okay, so thank you for your question. The first one was that you may need a number of engineers, right? Yes, I mean, you may need more engineers depending on what kind of project you're doing. So even within the same team, you will have 3, 4, maybe even 5 engineers. If you take a typical project, initially, there are certain works done by geotechnical engineers, for instance. They would, I'm assuming the surveying has been done, but then for certain projects, you would have to do some ground investigation. That is normally done by the geotechnical people. and then they would generate a report. The report will come to the team, then the team will have to convince after the team agrees, explain to the client what has to be done. So the geotechnical aspect is a specialization in itself. And like I said, the structural engineering is another specialization by itself. And then you come to the MEP people, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing people. They too is a whole new, depending on what project is being implemented and what the designs are, then you will know which specializations you need on your team. So yes, in a typically complex project, you could end up with 2, 3, maybe even 4 different specific engineering practices on that team, yes. That typically is the issue, yeah.
Right, so we'll take our next set of questions. But before then, I would want to ask our dear presenter on the land issues. Now, you mentioned one aspect where you gave an example that the church will buy land and then within a short period, Lands Commission will need to give a consent. And at that point, it becomes a problem. I think you were trying to refer to the term or the lease period that has been granted. Please, can you throw more light on that so that our various leaders here would get an understanding of that? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And as I was saying, there are different interests in land. We have a lease, and now under our constitution, a lease can run for 99 years. But if it's a foreigner, even as far back as 1969, under 1969 constitution, even if the foreigner had a freehold, automatically now it's 50 years. Automatically. So now most of these government leasehold areas, Roman Ridge, cantonments, Laboni, and all those, they have a tenure. TDC, I don't know how TDC is doing. They are reducing it. Now TDC is reducing it. So if you're not careful, you want to build a church and airports, my church is in East Cantonments. So another church may also want to build in East Cantonments. The land that the person is giving you, that way is left with, because the lease was 99 years, 89 years, it's left with it. Then, because you need a consent of land commission, because that's a government leasehold area. So automatically, if it's a stool land or a government land, that's now the previous land commission. And now they call it the Public Invested Land Management Division of the commission would have to grant you the consent. Then they will tell you that no, we are not prepared to extend the or the interest in the land, for example. Then it means that you've gone to buy litigation. The person might have the vendor or your grantor might have gone to buy and then use the rest of the money to move to, to go and live somewhere. Then you have to start litigating with the land commission and all those, other people involved. They become the problem. You may, and now, honestly, now when you go to court, what I'm realizing, doing land litigation, for example, is that most of the cases that you even join land commission, their lawyers will not come. To fight it out. Because at the end of the day, whoever wins, they will take the judgment to the commission, and then they plot it in favor of whoever wins the matter. Even though originally the land belongs to the state, and it's the land commission that is asking for on behalf of the state through the chair. So these are things that we may want to be very careful about. And then because we buy through the agents, the agent would tell you that, oh, this one, you don't need a lawyer. But at the end of the day, you are going to pay more to the lawyer and for litigation. So these are some of the things that we may want to understand. If it is a lease, how many more years is left? Because the law says that you cannot convey, you cannot give more than what you have. So if what is left is 10 years, and then you are selling the land to the person for 50 years or 60 years, then the court will tell you that no, you cannot give more than what or you cannot give what you don't have. Name more than the Latin, whatever. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My question has to do with the lands acquisition and the registration. Please, you made mention of the fact, you made mention of something concerning provisional title.
Provisional certificate.
Provisional certificate. I want to ask a quick question. The person having the provisional certificate, does he have the right of selling the property at the time that he's holding the provisional certificate? If yes, what happens to the buyer if the table turns against the holder of that provisional certificate?
Then
Yes, that's question number one. Question number two, again, sometimes you have satisfied every obligation at the Land Commission. Everything you've been asked to do, you do it. All what you are expecting is your certificate. No query has been raised, nothing has been told you. But over 1 year, sometimes 2 years, you've not gotten the certificate. What will be the cause? And what do you have? What rights are open to you as an applicant? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to help limiting the land litigation. I am a chief and recently installed chief. I would like to help whether the churches or anybody acquiring land should have a direct discussion with the opinion leaders than rather seeking the land acquisition through a backdoor. Sometimes we make a mistake. Either a fear or not. Instead of going straight to the chiefs, they go to other parties. Now I need a help from the lawyer. Inexperienced as I am, what land management plan should I put in place so that the person who acquires land from me will not entangle with other further legal issues? Thank you.
Okay, so just a little, when you're asking your questions, please, we'll be grateful if you could get up and then you state your name and where you're from, so that at least this is an official meeting, we can get the records. So say if you don't mind, you can tell us where you're from by getting up and then telling us.
My name is Charles Tanaya Owusu from Freedom Temple Assemblies of God, Olebu, but I'm from Ahafo, Bediako, the next town from me.
Thank you, sir. Please, if you can hand the microphone to him. Yes. If you can be upstanding and then tell us your name and where you're from, sir.
My name is John Ajete from Liberation Bible Church.
Thank you so much. So we take the last question and then our speakers will come in.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Jeanette Akofa from Livingstone's Family Church. So I have a question to both the architect and then the engineer. I want to find out if there can be a situation where the architect, probably his project, and then the engineer's project do not align, or they don't agree on the same project. If it happens, how do you resolve that conflict? And also to the engineer, You mentioned in one of your points that um, the church should utilize a third-party quality control engineer, and then the report should be submitted directly to the project manager. So in a situation where now the third party's report differs from the engineer's report, are you going to do away with your engineer and go with a third party now? In this case, who are you going to trust with the reports? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, so respect to the provisional certificate. If you look at section 128 of Acts 1036, it talks about a provisional certificate. And the provisional certificate, you see, are the circumstances under which they are issuing you with a provisional certificate would have been stated. What I'm realizing is that, you see, that in most cases, in Accra, for example, we used to have quarter lands and family lands and some of the areas, like where I live. Before the 10 or 15 years ago, those places were very far from Accra Central, Adenta and all those places. So people would have acquired a land for poultry farm. The typical example is Opwegono, where, if those of you who know Zoom Lion, that area, for example, I know that Janakwe know how to litigate over the land for some time, because originally he had acquired for a poultry farm or something. And then, around the Pantan Hospital too. And then as development, expands, people would then want to sell the land to new acquirers or those things, without reference to the land original owners. You see, so when you sell the land to me, for example, I didn't know. So I would go to land commission, and now they are asking that bring they asking for what they call the head lease. The head lease, for example. And then in the head lease, they would have realized that it was for farming purposes. And now you have, decided to sell the property for residential purposes without going back to the original owners. Yes, you have an interest in the land. So until all those issues have been resolved, the Land Commission, by law, has the power to say that, fine, we know that you are in possession of the property. So long as the law is concerned, you are the owner. So we will issue you with a certificate. And that certificate will be contingent upon the resolution of certain, issues. So that 10-year period that they've given you, if you've exhausted only 5 years, yes, you have the right, you can give only 5 years. You can't go beyond the 5 years until the Land Commission and your original grantors have resolved the issue. So this is, you cannot give more than what you have. I think that's the more reason why now, when you are selling land and government land, they would want to write the assembly under the Special Planning Act. If that used to be the Town and Country Planning Act. Now, Land Commission would then ask the assembly there to indicate whether now that place, they have rezoned it from farming purposes to residential area before they do grant you with the certificate. And then the delay. If I just yesterday also, we have to write a letter to the land title commission, the land title registry. If that certificate has been there for, I think, 12 years, 12 solid years. And the problem is that incidentally that property is around my office. On that block, they say that the gentleman whose certificate has delayed for 12 years, his site plan conflicts with my head pastor's property. The Reverend says house is the first house. The second house is my general overseer's house. Then the church has a property next to that. And then next to these properties is this gentleman's property. And for whatever reason, so we were talking about the site plan. If you don't have, the person who prepared the site plan did not do the right thing, how can a property that had about 2 or 3 or 4, houses in between conflict with, another property? And for this, it's taking about 12 years. He is built, he's living in it. They have sent people to go and do inspection. Reverend, my head pastor gave us a copy of his certificate. The church's certificate, and then the next property after him belongs to my cousin. We got my cousin's certificate. But up to now, about 12 years. 12 solid years, we've not been able to, get the certificate. So the whole issue is that, the surveying. That is why now, you may want to use the qualified surveyors and not, draftsmen or people who do not even understand, what they are doing. Because I don't understand how that could have happened. With the site plan of that gentleman and, my head pastor's property, because there are 2 or 3 parcels of land in between. And the way they, land the place, record keeping in this country is also another problem, especially where they had to move even from the ministry to, the work here. And they still have some of the records still in the ministry building. So these are the problems. It may not be deliberate, but even how to get your, they call them, your original records there. So what you may want to do is then for them to open what they call a temporary jacket. And then if you have copies of all the, your document, you give it to them, and then they start, working on it. So it's a challenging thing. So make sure that you get the proper plans and documents, that's all.
Okay, thank you. So the architect will take the other question asked by the lady on the conflict.
Right, so dovetailing into what he said, this is a major problem that we have in this country, and it's even affecting investment in the country. Land in itself has become a risk for business. So even if somebody had $50 million and wanted to invest it in this country, his first line of risk is the land. And we really have to try and do something about it. Now I know we are having regional certified surveying with the barcode. There has been a lot of money pumped into this by different international bodies where we are making very small steps. I hope that one day things will become better in this country. So now to the lady who spoke about, yes, conflict between the architect and the engineer. There should be no conflict, because what happens is that we take the vision from the church and then we come out with it. So a lot of times, even before the engineer comes onto the table, he must have something to work with. And that would have arisen from the various meetings that would have had with the client. Sometimes it could be 6 months even before the engineer has something to work with. So there will definitely be no need for any conflict. And that's why I stress also the need to ensure that there is a cordial and good professional relationship between all the professionals. And with that, conflict is completely thrown out of the window. Thank you.
Yes, I have to agree 100%. Like before I started speaking, I said what we do is we make it happen. We make what the architect and the promoter want to happen. So we just put the mechanics of it together. That if he wants this column of this size, we give him that column of that size. And it's teamwork. We and the architect are actually on the same team to achieve the same purpose. So that conflict won't happen. The other side of your question is the interesting one. What I was trying to get you to understand is that you have the design and supervision team on one side, then you have the contractor on the other side. Now, what happens a lot in this country, and I'm saying this because I have a quality control lab that I run. What happens is a contractor has a job to do, and he must show that he's doing it and meeting the quality standards. So he would bring his samples to the lab, and then we would test and give him his results. When the samples fail, his argument is that I have brought you a job, and now you want to cost me money. You see? So the advice was that I would say that the project management team must be the one that receives the results so that they can know what the quality of the contractor's work is, but not to allow the contractor to go and bring quality sample results. And especially in government projects, it happens a lot. The contractor comes, he brings his samples. His payment is based on his test results. So he's very anxious to get good quality test results. So he puts a lot of pressure, and that's where the ethics thing comes into play. If the engineer's ethics are not right, and he happens to be under pressure at that time for school fees and a few things, he might consider. All I'm saying is that don't put him into temptation. That's all. Thank you.
And to answer the question of the chief, you see that under the new act, so that's why they are encouraging the setting up of what they call the customary land secretaries. In fact, anybody living in Accra, have you heard much litigation about Bawe, for example? Because the whole Accra, since over the years, Bawe, they had a very solid land secretariat. So I think that's what even under what they call the LAP project, the land administration project, that my brother was talking about, one of the flagship programs the government was undertaking in managing land. They decided to adopt the Bawe. So is it that those of you who know the American embassy, you see on the right there, they have this, like the structures that the architects use, on site. Is that was one of the customary land secretariat that I remember land commission set up. They set up one to around the State House area there. So now they are encouraging all the traditional areas and landowners, customary landowners, to set up secretariat. Because if you are not careful, the person that you bought the land from, and that's what is happening in Accra, he dies. And then unfortunately, you haven't developed the land. And then the person who succeeds him, or then they come and tell you that, well, the person who sold the land to you is gone. And so they would want to sell it to you again. But that's what is happening. There's I wouldn't mention the name of the church, a very big parcel of land directly opposite my house. And when I heard that it belonged to a church, I've been fighting, intruders over the years. I've been driving to the church's office at Lamoni, the Nyanibaya Estate area there. Over 2 acres of land, private land. I talked to the church's lawyers, even though I don't belong to that. Eventually, now the land is gone. Because the person who sold the land to, or who gave it to the church, is gone. But if they had a proper customary land secretariat, for example, this couldn't have happened because we have succession planning. So it's very, very critical that you as chiefs, we take advantage of the new law and then set up these customary land secretariats to manage these lands. If you go to Ashanti region, it doesn't happen that way because every land goes to the Otumfo's land secretariat. The various sub-chiefs, they are holding the land in trust for the Otumfo. Recently he nearly destroyed two major chiefs because of some of these things. Because there's one person who accounts for that land. and it is the Otunfo and no other person. You are holding it in trust. So that's what we would encourage all the chiefs, the traditional councils to do. Thank you very much.
Right. So,
can I just add something?
Yes, please. Then we'll take our next set of questions. Yeah, so
there is another problem that we have in this country where the land, the disposition of the land and the careful parceling of the land is not well done. So the chief takes over, and then, so that goes to you, the chief. He has his own surveyor who is just a chain link surveyor. And then this surveyor is the one who starts, the problem starts from that point. And he's just massacring the division of the land. Where it should be straight, you see the site plans, they are multifaceted, and when you think it should just be a straight line, it is not. So the Ghana Institute of Architects is trying to assign senior architects to some of these areas so we can help you properly set up the land distribution system so that it's far more beneficial to you if you know that if you buy a parcel of land, the next plot is properly aligned, there's an area which is reserved for green and all that. So that area now, you often think that that green area should be sold. Well, we sell everything. We sell the football field. We sell everything, you know. But you see that when you don't sell some of these things, actually the value of the land increases. And now the greener spaces are selling more. Areas which have more green spaces. So the same land you sold for 10,000 cedis in a better organized place is probably selling for 80,000 cedis. And so this is what we are trying to communicate so we can have some semblance of some order in this house called Ghana.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Daniel Sabute, Liberation Bible Church. I have two questions. With the recommendations that we've heard from the architects and then the engineer, will you go ahead to recommend to churches that architects, engineers should be involved in identifying the site as well as the acquisition of the land before giving out such contract to them? That is my first question. The second one, you know, we are in Accra. You go in for a parcel of land, and if you decide to go through all these processes, by the time you are through, somebody would have encroached on the same land. So sometimes you acquire the land, and the seller is even pushing you to start something very fast. Else, you'll be shocked that somebody will just take over the land. So if you are caught in between ensuring that you've gone through the process and then you being compelled to start something, at least you send a signal that this land has an owner. Between the two, which one will you go for? Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Pastor Cecil from Calvary Baptist Church. Just a quick one. Let me borrow this political question that who watches Watchman? Some months ago, we were having a meeting just around Botiano as church leaders when we saw a church building collapse. Now, almost a year or two prior to that meeting, we saw the same building coming up. And you could see that, I mean, the pace at which the building was put up, it was very scary. But at the end of the day, just a few years down the line, this whole building goes down. And so, yes, the Ghana Institution of Engineering is talking about being able to do the Category 1 assessment, which they don't like doing. But at the end of the day, who really ensures that a building project that is coming up, maybe in 3 months, 4 months, has been put up? Who really ensures that the necessary checks are done? Now, coming back to another question also with the, maybe to our architect, putting up church building projects can be sometimes very challenging because you have many stakeholders or you have many people putting their voice into it. So at what point in time does a pastor draw the line, especially where you have all these professionals lined up in your team? You have the architects, you have the engineers, you you have the surveyors, and all of them seem to have a very strong point. And you, the pastor, maybe you may not be coming from that background. Maybe you are maybe training in the word, teaching and preaching, not having that expertise. So how do you manage that situation? I think the lady tried to speak about that, whereby third parties also have drawn their reports criticizing the work, or maybe how do you call it, what your engineer is doing. How do you manage that situation, and where do you draw the line? Thank you very much.
Mr. Moderator, should I?
Yeah, please go on.
All right, okay. So, building the house of God is not easy to start with. We, as a Christian, I acknowledge that you have to deal with the issues in the spirit and also deal with the issues in the flesh. And a lot of times, you just have to be strong. You have to have a leader to lead that process. So there's a time in which you have to bring your building committee in line. You can't have 5,000 voices speaking at the same time. Once you have been appointed as the lead, you must hold that mandate and run with it. And if they don't like you, well, if they want to choose somebody else, it has to be like that. And on the other side of the consultancy, like I said, the architect will take that briefing from one person, not 7 people. He's going to sit down. One day I was doing a church building for somebody, and I just happened to go there, and the pastor said, you know, I'd like you to meet our church people. Can you come on a Sunday? So I decided to go on the Sunday. So I just sat down. I was just waiting. Once the service is over, I'll meet the building committee. Then she comes and she introduced, we are blessed to have our architect here today, and I'm going to give him the mic. And then that was the service, because the questions were coming left, right, center for the whole length of period. Then I realized that there's an issue over there. So I called her aside and I said, look, put your house in order. You can't have commotion. I want the place painted red. I want it green. This is too big. This is too small. We have to have one voice. And once she did that, we started having some semblance of order together. So the voices will come. Some of the building committees, I'm telling you, from deep experience, are notorious. I did some work out of this country in Botswana. I did the largest church over there. And whilst I was invited, I came in, and when I did my preliminary assessment, I looked at the structural drawing and I said, no, this is wrong. This is wrong. It is over-designed and all that. And they were all foreigners on the team, on the professional team. And so it became a bit of a conflict, but I was very sure of what I was saying. I hadn't seen such tonnage of iron rods being used for a building of that size, and I've traveled quite a bit on it. So he had factored in, for the structural engineer, he had factored in very heavy safety, unnecessary safety protocols, which was, so I challenged the pastor. I said, I'm putting it on record that this is wrong. You sort it out. So at that point, he invited a third party, like you're saying, who came to do an assessment. I flew back to Ghana, and then I got a message later on that, Kofi, everything you said was right. I'm sending you this $10,000. They saved $200,000 in the whole building with the review. You see, so what I'm saying is that at a point, and it's because it was incestuous, the structural engineer was a cousin of somebody who was a deacon in the church, and all the temptations that we face, the same things that we criticize our political leaders. Unfortunately, in the church, there's also family and friends and all kinds of things. And we must stand by the standards of excellence that the good Lord has taught us. If we don't, then we can't blame anybody.
And to add to the 5,000 voices, we are going to corporate governance now. So there's a law, Civil Liability Act, and then occupiers liability. I think so if anything goes wrong, with the, the structure. The probably none of the members of the building committee maybe will be held liable because they may not be, if your church is registered as a trustee, board of trustee, they may not be trustees. And now under the new Companies Act, is the council. And the council, if you look at the fourth schedule, even the pastor may not be a member of the council under the new law, the Companies Act. So if anything goes wrong, it's the council members who are going to be held liable. So these are things that we should have at the back of our mind. And the leadership, the councils, the board of trustees, because if anything goes wrong, you are the one who is going to be held liable. And if I'm buying a land and they are pushing me that, start. That in itself should, show that there's a red, flag somewhere. I wouldn't advise you to then go ahead. You would want to do your due diligence. Talk to even the neighbors. The neighbors in those areas, how do you call it? The guys who are hanging around, the caretakers in those areas, I can bet you, if they know more about those land than the landowners themselves, you would have to put your ears on the ground. Other than that, you buy litigation. Thank you.
Right, so I know there are a lot of questions. If you want to ask a question, kindly put up your hand. Good. Now kindly take out your mobile phone. And kindly pin in this number. 055-803-2376. 055-803-2376. Please start your question with your name and where you're from, and then just type out your question on WhatsApp and then send it through. After break, we'll read out all the questions that have come at a go so that our panelists can just take them. And that would go back and forth here. So on that note, you are discharged for the first round. After lunch, we'll come back again. Please, let's give them a big round of applause as they take their seats. Hello, sir. Okay, you wanted to take a group photograph. Sir, please. Great. Thank you so much. So next on the item, would like to make some quick presentations, after which we'll take a group photograph before we head out for break. I would duly be back to give you the procedure for the group photograph. But for now, I'll hand over to Reverend Emmanuel Ansa to do some presentations on behalf of the group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have to give a round of applause to our moderator. He's done an excellent job. These days, the engineers and the architects and the lawyers and so, they are not just, and doctors, they are not just what we used to think they are. They've changed. They are now taking over from the media. They are DJ people, they are dancers, they are beauticians, they are everything to us. And I see our brother, the surveyor, is doing a good job as a moderator. Give him a round of applause. Well, we are grateful to God for how far we've come this afternoon. We started in the morning, and it's been very engaging. And from the way the questions are going, we could go on and on and on, but we need to do other things. As we consider these recognitions that we want to give to people, we acknowledge that there are many good people in these fields in Ghana, but we can't give recognition to everybody. We are limited. And we also don't have knowledge of everybody's work. But those who catch our attention or who have caught our attention are the ones who would like to acknowledge. And the idea behind this recognition is to also inspire others and all of us to aspire for excellence as we work together towards the building of the Church of God. I'm happy to have with us here our board chairman, Bishop Edujemfi, Opon Edujemfi, who is here with us. Let's welcome him up. Please come up. Our board chairman is here. Oh, I think we can do better for him. He is also the vice chairman of the National Association of Charismatic and Christian Churches and general overseer of International Charismatic Church. We are also having with us here Reverend Professor Evelyn Ansah, who is my wife, and also a board member of Kingdom Equip. Please come up as we present these awards. We have our own board secretary, Miss Awusi Korte, who is here also with us. Let's acknowledge her. Come, let everyone see you. Oh, let's see you properly. Yeah, okay. So we will be making this presentation on behalf of the board and also the management of Kingdom Equip. We have two categories of recognition that we want to make. The first is in the area of individuals we believe have contributed immensely to development of church projects, which are generally, we'll call unique. And I would like Susan, who is our former director and former staff, now she's still a partner, even though she's moved on to Globe Ethics, to do us the honors of reading for us the first of these citations to the individuals concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Ansah. It is a privilege to be standing here this morning and to be in this congregation of great men. This is a very important event, and I believe so far we have taken so much from it, and it's going to lay a good legacy for the Church of God in our country and worldwide. God bless you for coming. Okay, my task here is to, on behalf of Kingdom Equip Network, honor some individuals and organizations, church organizations, which have been outstanding in regards to facilities and church facilities in particular. I'm going to begin the citation by welcoming our very own Albert William Stanhope Samoa. If he's here, yes, he is. Yes, sir. Please, will you join us? We want to see you and know you. I've had a pleasant conversation with him today, and already we are building very beautiful bonds. Yes, sir. Okay, so this is for outstanding contribution to the development of church facilities. The citation is to Albert William Stanhope Samoa. You have, as an architect, charted the path in designing and supervising the construction of significant climate-friendly buildings for all sectors of society. You have not limited yourself to secular buildings, but have extended your skill and dedication to providing concept-driven religious buildings that is very evident to see, amongst others, in the offices and churches for the Methodist Church in Dansuman, Jowulu, Adabraka, and Medina. You have not allowed your professional practice to prevent your pursuits of ensuring the welfare of marginalized groups and the broken. You were key in the resettling of refugees of wars in Liberia and Cote d'Ivoire, as you partnered with the Christian Council in Ghana and the UNHCR to provide shelter. You found time in your busy schedule to work in ministry. You served as an officer of both the Synod of the Methodist Diocese in Accra and the Conference of the Methodist Church, Ghana. You have served as a trustee and member of the Executive Council of the Christian Council of Ghana. You are an inspiration in leadership, chairing the Christian Community Microfinance Limited, and for 6 years represented Africa on the international board of the Ecumenical Loan Fund, Ekklesia, the microfinance subcommittee of the World Council of Churches. The board and management of Kingdom Equip Network have noted all the hard work and dedication you have demonstrated in your service to the body of Christ, your country, and the world at large. We want to present this citation to you in honor for this hard work and dedication to the kingdom of God. God bless you so much, sir. We appreciate you and we honor you today. Beautiful. We want to have a glimpse of what is in the package. All right. Okay. That is a beautiful plaque in honor. It's not broken, it's very solid. It's as solid as Mr. Isamwa himself. Yes, sir. Beautiful. So on behalf of Kingdom Equip Network, this is presented to Albert William Stanhope Isamwa. God bless you, sir. Great. All right. A round of applause. Thank you. It is my honor to welcome another excellent young man up here on stage with us. I would like to welcome Kofi Essel Appiah, please. Yes, sir. This recognition is for outstanding contribution to the development of church facilities. Citation in honor of Kofi Essel Appiah, architect Kofi Essel Appiah. After studying architecture at the Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul, Porto Alegre, Brazil, you returned to Ghana in 1990. With your mix of experiences from your diverse backgrounds, travels, and international exposure, you established and continue to lead Predios, which has delivered a wide-ranging portfolio of projects within Ghana. As a dedicated Christian, you have rendered invaluable services to churches and church-related institutions, including, but not limited to, the design of the master plan for the Central University Mutual, the design and supervision of the construction of the headquarters facility of the International Central Gospel Church, ICGC, and the design and supervision of the construction of Trinity Hall, Central University. In the same vein, you have reflected your godly values of faithfulness, team spirit, and simplicity in all your projects, thereby projecting the Lord Jesus Christ. Your sense of dedication paved the way for you to be able to combine your role as the president of East Legon chapter of the Full Gospel Businessmen Fellowship International with your hectic professional schedule. You chair the board of the Commonwealth Association of Architecture for the recently acquired revalidation of the Bachelor of Science in Architecture and Master of Architecture programs of the Department of Architecture, College of Art, and Built Environment of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Kumasi, Ghana. You excelled as the consultant's design team lead and project development manager for the record-breaking COVID-19 Ghana Infectious Disease Center at East Hospital in Ghana. This achievement earned you a presidential honor for distinguished service to the nation. On behalf of the board of Kingdom Equip Network, we congratulate you, sir, for making Christ shine in your profession and the world at large. God bless you, sir. We congratulate you. We honor you with this citation. Thank you very much, sir. God bless you. Oh, please, let's do it well for him. Thank you very much, sir. God bless you. All right. Now we want to recognize some Christian organizations. Shall I humbly ask representatives of the Pentecost Convention Center to join us upstage? Representatives of the Pentecost Convention Center. Yes. Even as I read these citations, I myself am amazed, I'm blown away. I've been to virtually almost all these facilities, and I think it's something that we all need to try and make time to go to and experience. Okay. This citation is for exceptional church facility presented to Pentecost Convention Center, PCC, a subsidiary of the Church of Pentecost. You have created a beautiful city within a city in the serene and refreshing environment of Gomwafete. This serves as the hub of Christian spirituality, offering a spiritual ambience that makes it a favorite getaway place for waiting on the Lord for personal and corporate retreats. For 10 years, your center, with your unique facilities, situated on a 250-acre land and boasting of excellent and unique accommodation facilities that can accommodate over 3,000 guests and excellent cafeteria services with a seating capacity of 3,000, has proudly hosted many local and international conferences for over 500,000 guests across the globe. It has become the biggest Christian event center in Ghana. Your center reflects your devotion to family life with the incorporation of a recreational facility with a children's auditorium and resource center. You model the attitude of Jesus in service to God's creation when you responded to the call to serve under the spirit of volunteerism by confidently making available your facility at no cost to the government of Ghana for use as an isolation center during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. We are grateful for all the hard work and devotion you have demonstrated over the years in your service to others that has resulted in an amazing Christian center of excellence for churches and individuals who need a place for spiritual renewal and strategic planning. The board and management of Kingdom Equip Network duly recognize your outstanding contribution to the body of Christ. We present this citation to you, to the Pentecost Convention Center, the subsidiary of the Church of Pentecost, and we honor your facility, the brains, the spirit, and the work behind all that has gone into that beautiful facility that has been made available for people all over the world. God bless you. God bless you. We honor the Church of Pentecost for the facility. I must say, I've been to the facility and I've enjoyed the cafeteria too. It's not an exaggeration. Yes. Yeah. This is right here in Ghana. It's nowhere else. I've walked this place on these corridors. So this is the Pentecost Convention Center, the 5,000-seater hall. It's beautiful. All right. Yes. A round of applause, please. Thank you. And finally, shall I humbly invite representatives of the Anakazo Bible and Ministry Training Center. Anakazo Bible and Ministry Training Center. A round of applause, please, as they approach the stage. Okay, so this citation is for exceptional church facility, presented to the Anakazo Bible and Ministry Training Center, Mampong, Ekwapim, in the Eastern region. For 27 years, as a Bible and Ministry Training Center, you have been at the forefront of hosting significant Christian events. Your dedication and commitment to delivery of excellent service has marked you out as an international ground for pastoral and missionary training, as well as conferences. Thank you for providing an eco-friendly environment where one encounters Jesus Christ in all dimensions, carved out of the over 200-acre land situated within the serene Ekwapim mountain range. The Jesus, the Savior of the world sign in your facility is an unforgettable representation of your evangelistic passion. Your Center for Historical Research into World Evangelism and Global Missions would easily pass as the global Christian equivalent of the Madame Tussauds in London, United Kingdom. Your spacious prayer gardens offer solace to many individuals and church groups, irrespective of their denomination. Your center is home to several halls, seating between 1,000 and 4,000 guests. Similarly, your training and hostel facilities cater for tens of thousands of seminary students and guests from across the globe. You have not only left an indelible mark of the Church of God in the experiences of Ghanaians alone, but to others from all parts of the world, from Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, the Caribbean, and more. The dedication and hard work of your staff and volunteers has been duly acknowledged by your patrons. On behalf of the board and management of Kingdom Equip Network, we celebrate this unique feat, which has been a blessing to the body of Christ and humanity as a whole. We present this citation for exceptional church facility to the Anakazo Bible and Ministry Training Center, Mampong, Ekwapim, Eastern Region. God bless you and congratulations. God bless you. All right. So a final round of applause. God bless you. Thank you.
Show us a little more, please.
We have these great evangelists right above you went to the Lord not too long ago.
So I see evangelist right above you there, of course, his successor, Daniel Galenda.
And there's another successor is my dad as well.
Is your dad? Yeah, for sure.
They're all still carrying on the same torch. They still have a crusades.
And actually, the pastor died.
Yes.
He actually created this incredible museum.
Yes, he built this museum. Yes,
So look at this. So this is
Manzanito also. You must know Manzanito also. He was one of the great evangelists in Africa. He once said that truthfully, 70% of all the pastors in Africa are his products and products of his products. And he won so many people to Jesus because of his crusades. He's probably the biggest influence in Africa until today. And most of the fruit in Africa come from him. So again, this is just a hall of great Holy Spirit-filled evangelists.
Okay, thank you very much. They have a stand out there, the video is showing, and you get more details of what happens at the Pentecost Conference Center, Convention Center, and also the Nakazo Center as well. I think they deserve to be acknowledged properly. Mr. Samoa will respond with a few words and a short video on the Wesley, the ultra modern. I think it's the newest addition to the church collection in Ghana. Let's welcome Mr. Samoa as he gives us a little thanksgiving and then also a little insight into the Wesley House, ultra modern Wesley House. Well, I think we can do better. It takes hours to design a building, a 3-bedroom house, more so a complex one like the Wesley House. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I am very honored to be honored, and it's a joy to see Lawyer Morgan as the chairman of today's occasion. I am an architect, as you were told, and I've been working for the church for most of my working life. Working for the church as a fellow architect, my fellow architect said, is quite interesting. And on occasion, you get a project like this to do. And when you get a project like this to do, it brings to your mind and it brings to your work a lot of the things that you know as an architect you must do. Most importantly, with church architecture, as my brother said, it must be symbolic. And you can see that the chairman said that he's been involved in a lot of international projects, the ECOWAS house and the SU Tower. But you can see a huge difference between the SU Tower and the ECOWAS building. With the SU Tower, you see the symbol of a church in the elevation of the SU Tower. And so also with the Wesley Tower. The Wesley Tower reflects the motto of the Methodist Church. The Methodist Church has a motto, which is the cross and the Edinkra symbol, Nyabidua, in the map of Ghana. So what we did with this building was to turn this into architecture. Ghana, if you try to mimic a direct object in architecture, it looks a little cheap. You want the building, the beauty of it to last. So what we did was that we took rather the concept of Ghana, which is the International Code plus 233. And then we embossed the cross and Nyabidua on it. So if you look at it, there are 3 boxes. The first box is 2 floors. The second box is 3 floors. The final box is 3 floors, all on the podium. And then the cross is a plus. So that's plus 233. So that's Ghana. That's Methodist Church. You can see that. You can see the 233. And then again, it is twisted. The building is twisted because the building is looking in all directions. And the Methodist Church has, as its core, it was founded by John Wesley. We all know John Wesley. And John Wesley said, the whole world is my parish. So the building is looking left, looking right, looking down. because our ministry is to the whole world. We are looking in all directions. So that is what this building is about. Church architecture is interesting. There's a whole lot that we have to do, and we pray and hope that, in fact, this, my brother, this is fantastic. I'm going to stay. I'm not going away. I'm going to listen to everything that you tell us today. What Brother Nketia told us about the legalities of land, you need to know when you get the land, you need to know what it is zoned for, the size, etc. And then you go to the architect. The architect will help you to check all this, and then the engineer will come in. It's very interesting, and if you get it wrong, you mess it up big time, because it's a fantastic opportunity to do evangelism. All buildings speak. This space is speaking. Everything that you do about a building speaks. And in architecture, we get the most fantastic opportunity. Don't forget that before the advent of printing, our forefathers in Christianity were using artworks and architecture to teach people about the scriptures. Printing came in, it has not usurped that duty of architecture. Give architects the opportunity to evangelize, help you to evangelize. And when you have buildings like this, it's going to speak all the time. Why is the building twisted? Tell them it's because for us, the whole world is our parish. Why does the building have a cross on it? Because Christ died for us. Nyamidua is the local symbol that God is everywhere. And in the night, when you see the lights up, and when you go near and you see the colored fountains, and which are synchronized to music, hymns, the fountains and the lights represent the Holy Spirit. Water represents the living water, the word of God. It's beautiful, it's evangelistic. Some would pass by and would get some sustenance for it. And for that, we walk away and feel that we have also done our duty. So I am only adding a little bit to what my brother has said. Let us work with architects and engineers and the lawyers so we can get products which would also help us to raise up our Christ to the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for dedicating most of your working life to Christ and the church. When he finished his architectural studies before I went to Tech around 1984. So you can imagine how old he has been working as an architect. And all these years, a lot of his work has been towards the work improvement of the church. Amen. I think we are about winding up. Our dear friend, let's give him a round of applause again. And we're going to go out soon to take some pictures. And we'll be taking it on the staircase out there. I would wish to see the following immediately after we break from here, before we take the pictures. Lawyer Nkiti, okay. Apostle Apasara, Apostle Nia Ponsa, and Mrs. Nia Ponsa. I see Reverend Ankama Samoa and his wife are here. Cleaning Solutions, they are our major sponsors. Thank you for coming to support us. Oh, give them a hand, give them a hand. And then we have Apostle Baja is here, yes, from Gospel Light. We have Reverend Titi Lati from Harvest Chapel, one of our major sponsors over the years. And they produce Reverend Betty, who's going to be speaking shortly to us after the break for us. Let's give them a round of applause, Reverend Titi Lati. And then, of course, Mrs. Donko will be introduced, but her husband is already here, Uncle B, Bethel Donko, lawyer Bethel is here. Let's give them also a round of applause. And I don't want to introduce all the speakers who will be coming. Apostle Doku, the president of the Council of Independent Churches, he's always been at our programs. Let's welcome him. He prayed for us at the beginning. We also have Apostle Apasara mentioned, all the way from Upper West, where he's come. Oh, I think it's a good time to acknowledge him. Thank you so much. And then we also have Apostle Jones, the Deputy General Overseer of Evangelistic Ministries. Robert Tampia Kofi's ministry. He's here with us all the way from Asamankesi. He's an apostle based in Asamankesi. He's tapping into the fire, the pillar of fire still. Amen. So we want to thank God for all of you, and I'd like to have a word with you after we've taken the picture. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So please would go out, but first our dignitaries will take the lead, and then we'll follow suit. So please, shall we all be upstanding? And then our dignitaries, the chairperson, the speakers, our special invited guests, you can now file out through the exit door, the staircase area. So all the dignitaries that were mentioned, please follow them as well. Various representatives of the sponsors and companies, please also follow suit. So our dear dignitaries, we are waiting for you to leave before you follow, because you are going to occupy the front row, so you have to leave first. Right, so the row on my left, that is on your right, please follow suit.